Badr, you were the COP28 Special Representative for Business and Philanthropy. And as we've heard in the last hour or so, both philanthropies and potentially businesses are hesitant to deploy capital at scale, but for different reasons. Philanthropies, perhaps some would argue, are too conservative, trapped in cycles of very sort of judicious ways of deploying capital and looking for that, near-term local impact, if you will, that Ray was describing. And businesses, of course, have shareholders to answer to for the most part. Can you take us inside the room, if you will, and help us understand when you were talking with businesses, when you were talking with philanthropies at COP28, how did you help get them over that line and start convincing them to deploy more capital against this issue?
So first of all, just want to thank and congratulate WEF and more specifically Gaia for continuously elevating the role that strategic philanthropy can play in partnership with business capital and government capital to really help to move the needle a lot further and a lot faster on a whole host of global issues, including, of course, the climate and nature agenda. So it's been just over a month since COP28, and as I was saying to Ray, some of us are still experiencing withdrawal symptoms, waking up in night sweats thinking about loss and damage fund and global decarbonization accelerators. But it really was a moment where, as Secretary Kerry said, 195 nations in the world or so came together to deliver the UAE consensus in response to the first global stocktake. And there were a number, as Secretary Kerry said, a number of unprecedented outcomes, one of which, of course, was the fact that the world came together to agree on the transition away from fossil fuels in a just, orderly, and equitable manner, underpinned by the science towards net zero by 2050. We agreed to triple renewable energy and double energy efficiency by 2030. We agreed to double adaptation financing. We managed to harness over $85 billion in new capital, really from across the spectrum of stakeholders, agreed to operationalize the loss and damage fund, and a host of other outcomes across different climate, nature, health spectrum. But for me, what I think COP28 represented, which really was the vision of Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber, was a paradigm shift in the way that we unite, act, and deliver. And I think it also demonstrated that even in a pretty dismal geopolitical environment, multilateralism isn't dead, but that it needs to work for everybody. So it really was the inclusivity piece that I think underpinned the success of the conference. So yes, we had about 90,000 people who turned up, and that may have been a record, but it's what those 90,000 people represented. Yes, we had heads of state and ministers that you would expect to see at a COP conference, but we also had record number of businesses, of business leaders, of philanthropists, of youth, of civil society representatives, of climate activists, of indigenous peoples. And I think it was the combination of all these stakeholders coming together, again, that inclusivity piece, that helped bridge some of the trust divides that were growing across sectors, but also across regions of the world. So I think going forward, in order to create and generate that multiplier effect, to take us from the billions that we have to the trillions that we need, we really need to continue to embrace the inclusivity that COP28 put forward. And I'm confident in discussing and talking to the COP29 presidency and, of course, the COP30 presidency in Brazil that this is exactly what we're going to continue to do. So I'm very optimistic that by bringing these parties together, including philanthropic capital, we can help to see and scale impact and also availability of climate and nature finance.
Thank you very much.